When a crisis hits, a fire, a shooting, a natural disaster, we see the lights and hear the sirens. But the single most critical element, the thing that determines whether a response succeeds or fails, is something we can't see at all. It's communication. It's the invisible thread holding everything together. And when that thread breaks, well, the consequences are absolutely devastating.
And this isn't some abstract idea. This is a direct quote from the Department of Justice's report on the Uvalde school shooting. It shows you exactly what's at stake. A communication failure isn't just about a dropped call or a technical glitch. It's about real, profound, and lasting pain for human beings.
Here's the thing, though. Uvalde, as tragic as it was, wasn't some isolated incident. Communication breakdown is a theme you see over and over again in major public safety failures. So today, we're going to untangle this web and figure out why it's so incredibly hard to get right.
It's kind of wild when you think about it. 20 years ago, the tools were pretty simple, right? You had a radio and maybe a paper map book. That was it. Today, responders are drowning in an ocean of data. We're talking real-time video feeds, sensor data from all over, shared digital dashboards. But here's the paradox. Having all this extra information hasn't automatically led to more clarity. In a lot of ways, it's just created way more complexity.
Let's see how this actually plays out on the ground. Imagine a big warehouse fire. 3 different fire departments show up to help. Now, with all this modern tech, you'd think every single person there is looking at the same picture of the incident. But more often than not, that is just not the case.
This is what that fragmented reality looks like. Department A knows exactly where Engine 12 is, but Department B is totally in the dark. Meanwhile, Department B has the building layout, supercritical information, but it's locked away in their system and nobody else can see it. So you've got different teams working with completely different pieces of the puzzle. And that leads to delays, wasted effort, and it just makes a dangerous situation even more risky for everyone involved.
So why? Why does this keep happening? Well, the first big reason is technical. We've got all these amazing high-tech tools, but a lot of the time, they just can't speak the same language.
The big fancy word for this is interoperability. It's a mouthful, but it's really just the invisible plumbing that lets different systems share information. You can have the most advanced technology in the world, but without interoperability, all you really have is a bunch of expensive, isolated gadgets.
So to fix this, what we really need is a universal translator. And that's what data standards are supposed to be, a common language so that everyone's tech can communicate. The problem? These standards have been around for decades, but getting everyone to actually use them, well, that's been a much, much slower process.
And then you've got the security problem. The standoff between the FBI and Apple after the San Bernardino shooting is the perfect example. The FBI argued that getting into that phone was critical for public safety. Apple's response? Forcing us to unlock it compromises the privacy of every user. Creating a backdoor for the good guys also creates a brand new security risk for everyone else. It's this fundamental conflict, and there are no easy answers.
Okay, so that's the tech side between responders, but then there's the whole other side of communication, the public. And in a crisis today, public communication is all about social media. It's a tool that can spread life-saving information and total chaos with the exact same breathtaking speed.
You know, it's easy to point the finger at social media, but it's not really the hero or the villain here. It's an amplifier. It takes whatever communication system an agency has and just makes it more. So if your messaging is clear and disciplined, social media makes it stronger. But if your system is fractured and contradictory, social media will shatter it for the entire world to see. And if you want a perfect case study of this in action, look no further than the Oroville Dam crisis. Within 5 minutes of the official evacuation order, false posts were flying around saying the dam had already failed. 15 minutes in, different agencies were sharing conflicting evacuation routes. The result? Total chaos and panic, which actually slowed down the real evacuation.
Now, to prevent the kind of chaos we saw at Oroville, there's actually a system in place. It's called the Joint Information System, or JIS. Its whole purpose is to be a single source of truth, to make sure every agency is speaking with one unified voice, turning all that public noise into a clear, actionable signal.
But here's the thing. Even if you have the right tech and you have the right processes like the JIS, communication can still fail. Why? Because the hardest part isn't the technology. It never has been. It's always about the people, the policies, the procedures, the trust, or the lack of it.
And get this, a recent study found something that is just staggering. Nearly 60% of all communication failures in public safety are caused by systems that the agencies themselves don't even control. Yeah, let that sink in for a second. We're talking about commercial cell networks, cloud providers, private internet lines. You can have the most perfect emergency plan in the world, but if the private infrastructure that your plan depends on goes down, your entire response can be crippled in an instant.
And this really pulls back the curtain on the real barriers to getting this right. The technology to share information exists. That's not the problem. The problem is human. It's a lack of trust between agencies, it's people protecting their turf, and it's a failure of leadership to build a culture where cooperation is the default.
Which, of course, brings us right back to where we started, Uvalde. Now that we understand all these different layers, the tech, the public, the human element, let's look at how they all tragically came together that day.
This is maybe the single most heartbreaking breakdown of them all. The information was there. Children were calling 911 from inside the classrooms, but that critical life-saving intelligence never made it from the 911 dispatcher to the on-scene commander who was making the tactical decisions. The signal was lost in the system.
And the communication failure didn't just end when the shooting was over. As the DOJ report makes painfully clear, families were left completely in the dark, desperately trying to find out if their loved ones were okay. Some of them learned the fate of their own children from watching media reports. That is a profound failure of responsibility.
The DOJ review documented this whole cascade of failures. Senior leaders were giving conflicting information. Nobody ever gave a clear, all-clear signal. And in all of that chaos, the families, the people who needed clear, accurate information the most, they were treated like an afterthought, not the priority.
And this is what it all boils down to. This was not a technology problem. The radios worked. The phones worked. What broke down was the human system, the leadership, the trust, and the clear procedures needed to manage an insane amount of pressure.
So here it is, the core lesson from all of this. Communication is not some side job you hand off to a press officer. It is a core leadership responsibility. It's the thread that holds the entire response together. And when that thread breaks, everything else will fall apart. So, the reports have been written. The failures have been documented time and time again. The devastating consequences are known. The question we're all left with is, how do we finally move from just documenting these failures to actually making sure these lessons are learned and that they are never, ever repeated?